Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Don't miss Deadline Live with Jack Blood. He doesn't just cover the news, he uncovers the news. Weekday afternoons, 3 to 5 p.m. Central, only on American Freedom Radio.
Well, it is up to you. You're looking around going, who, me? Yeah. I think the Founding Fathers and the Revolution were thinking about the same thing. Wouldn't it have been nice if everybody would have joined in the revolution to free this country, write the Constitution, and set out this grand experiment we call the Republic, if you can keep it. But you're looking around and you're thinking, well, why me? Why do I have to do it? Because you know about it. That's why. And because it is going to be up to somebody, and if not you, then who? We ask this question not just on this show, but on this network, and it's very important that you stand up and do something, that you take a stand. When you hear what we talk about here in the second hour, if you've ever thought about just staying neutral and putting your head in the sand and nothing can be changed, it has nothing to do with you, I think you're going to change your mind. A Terrible Mistake is I think it's about 920 pages. It's literally 5 books in one, published by our good friend Chris Milligan at Trine Day Press. Terrible Mistake is subtitled The Murder of Frank Olson and the CIA's Secret Cold War Experiments is a absolute mind-blower. On November 28, 1953, one of America's greatest mysteries occurred when an Army biochemist working with the CIA fell to his death from a hotel window in New York City. Most of us know or have heard the story of Frank Olson, but you haven't heard the whole story. 22 years later, it was revealed that the scientist Frank Olson had been drugged with LSD days before his death. In 1996, the New York District Attorney's Office opened a murder investigation into Olson's strange death, and the strangeness surrounding Olson's death only widened. Who killed Frank Olson and why? Now the mystery is solved, and the truth will shock you. Who murdered Frank Olson and why? What was the true nature of Olson's work for the CIA and at Fort Detrick? It's all in here. What did the CIA's secret mind control experiments have to do with Frank Olson? Why has the government covered up the truth about Frank Olson for over 50 years? It will be national security. Well, if anyone cares, it's Frank Albarelli, our guest here. Sorry, Hank Albarelli. It not only delves into the issues of what happened to Frank Olson, but the dark secrets behind these CIA and government projects to create germ warfare, assassination teams, and mind control and behavioral control experiments. Hank is a graduate of Antioch Law School. He worked for President Jimmy Carter's White House. He also worked for the U.S. Department of Treasury, the National Consumer Cooperative Bank. He was on the senior policy staff of the Service Employees International's Union, AFL-CIO. He's traveled widely throughout Asia, Europe, and Africa. He's written numerous newspaper articles on biological warfare and international affairs, intelligence affairs. His book, novel Heap, was published in 2005. His biography of George Hunter White, which we'll be talking about on this show, will be published by Trine Day in 2011. And he joins us on the program now. Hank HP, what an honor it is to have you. I've had my nose in this book for the last week. I've known about all this stuff for a long time, Hank, but you have really taken this to a new level with me.
Thank you very much. Your remarks are very kind.
Well, I mean, kind. We owe you a huge debt of gratitude. How long did it take you to research this book?
Well, that's a good question. I get asked that all the time, and I normally say 10 years, but the other night I sat down and figured it out. It was actually closer to 12 years. The first 2 years were sort of casual, though. I had no idea where I was going with it. I thought it was going to be a 10,000-word article, but it turned into a 900-page book.
Well, kind of like the author of Dr. Mary's Monkey, which we've also featured on this show, another great Shrine Day book, you kind of found yourself caught up in this. It was almost a matter of, it's got to be you. It looked for you rather than you looking for it.
Well, that's a very accurate statement. It almost was like I was ordained to write the book, and I experienced that sensation, that feeling, that emotion often when I wrote the book. There were a number of startling coincidences that I encountered over the 10 years, and most of those are listed in the book. But within about 3 or 4 years into writing the book, I really had that feeling that this was something I was supposed to do, that I really didn't have any control over, that I didn't choose the book chose me.
Let's spend the next 10 or 15 minutes talking about Frank Olson and what happened to him, and then in the second part of the interview, let's go ahead and delve deeply into these dark experiments run by the Central Intelligence Agency, started by Alan Dulles and others, and which involves some of the usual suspects we talk about on our program: Cheney, Rumsfeld, the Rockefeller Institute, and Sidney Gottlieb, all the people we've talked about on this show for years. First of all, Frank Olson worked at Fort Detrick almost by accident. He was recruited. He went in there, kind of a mild-mannered guy. Didn't really fit the profile of somebody working on evil Nazi experiments, but that's exactly what he wound up doing. If you could kind of give us a synopsis of Frank Olson, and what he was doing over there, and then what happened to him.
Sure. Olson's employment at it was known as Camp Detrick, and then in '54 the name changed to Fort Detrick. But Olson's employment at the Detrick facility followed very closely on his coming out of graduate school. It was really the first professional job he had, and it was the only professional job he had because he died in 1953. But he was recruited right out of graduate school by a man who had overseen his thesis at the University of Wisconsin, and that was Ira Baldwin, who had been handpicked by George Merck, who was
Merck Pharmaceuticals,
a chemical company magnate, but who also is widely viewed as the founder of Fort Detrick. And Merck reached out for Baldwin because he admired his work, and he knew Baldwin had access to a lot of potentially good employees. And Baldwin, I think it was the third person Baldwin hired was Frank Olson, because he had been impressed with him as a student at the University of Wisconsin. And
it was a little bit of
Olson
nepotism,
at the time
right?
was
a little bit of nepotism, Hank. I mean, a lot of these guys came from Wisconsin and from that same circle.
Yeah, that's true. They both did come from Wisconsin, but I think Olson was a pretty talented guy when he was young, and he was very aggressive and outspoken, and he left a mark on Baldwin. Baldwin actually was pretty independent too, and could be outspoken, but Olson had really struggled to get through school financially, and part of that struggle involved joining, ROTC. So when Baldwin reached out for Olson was in Texas as a captain in the Army. So he packed up his family. He had 2 children at the time and a wife, and they drove across country to Maryland and started work.
So he goes to Camp Detrick, and he's doing kind of everyday work, right? And then he starts finding himself in the middle of the Artichoke operations, and just surrounded by CIA guys. And he was really the portrait I get from him from your book, Hank, is that he was kind of an unwitting dupe in a lot of ways. I mean, he wants to do this work. He wants to serve his country. He's very patriotic. But he starts seeing some of the things that are going on around him, and it's worrisome for him.
Yeah, that's a good synopsis of what happened. He went through the Second World War working at Detrick, and everything was fine. He actually was quite happy, according to his family. But after the war ended, things changed dramatically. Around 1950, the CIA came in and developed a strong relationship with Olson's division, which was called the Special Operations Division.